Don Fischer with us now, the dean of college football broadcasting. Don, first of all, I'm sure you're aware by now of the Jack Tuttle has entered the transfer portal for Indiana. That's not a surprising move to me. The timing is just very surprising for me.
Well, I think Jack, and I love Jack Tuttle. He's a great kid. I know his dad, of course, who played at Indiana, is a kicker. And I've known Jack since he came on campus, and I like Jack a lot. I really do. And I understand his frustration. He thought he was going to get an opportunity at some point in his career to be the guy. It has not transpired that way. He's been the backup to Michael Penix for a couple of years, and obviously the backup this year to Connor Bazelak. I understand he wants to play, and he could have left a couple of years ago. So I look at it this way. He served this program. He's been a captain on this football team. I don't think he's gone out there and bellyached to his teammates about the fact that he's not playing. He's been a good leader in that respect, but he wants to play. And at this juncture, I'm sure he's put his name out there just so he finds out who's interested. And if he has interest in somebody someplace, he's going to find out that very quickly, I'm sure. And I get it. So I can't sit here and badmouth Jack Tuttle in any way, because I just think that's from a player's perspective. Or from a player's perspective, he's shown that he can play the game. And he's not getting that opportunity now. And today, with the portal and NIL, guys are free agents, so they can do whatever they want. And it's no longer the loyalty to a program, if you know what I mean. It's not going to happen that way any longer. It's just not going to. There'll be a few guys that are loyal no matter what the situation, but most of them are going to go someplace where they think they've got a chance to play.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not at all surprised because of everything you just said, because he has the talent to play, and he is quietly and patiently and supportively filled the position that he has filled. Right. And so I don't blame him a bit. I'm just surprised by like the timing of it coming out now, because I don't know how much difference it's going to make between now and actually at the semester, or of course he'll need to leave by semester, I'm assuming, but the timing was just a little weird, but that's it. That's the only thing I was surprised about it.
I think more than anything, it's just to get his name out there to get people to, because you get your name out there early, somebody's going to come up and say, hey, you're the guy. We think you can play for us. And if you wait until the end of the season, there are going to be 1,000 guys in that portal again. So he's getting a head start on it. I get that completely. I'm sure he'll finish his semester here at Indiana, and then he'll go wherever he finds a place that they want him. It's that simple.
Here's a nice stat that I did not see. Ed pointed out that the Maryland backup quarterback had more rushing yards than Indiana's backfield in the game. I did not know that stat. That's a pretty good one. Not a good one for Indiana, but
yeah. Why are you bringing that up, sir? Whoever you were.
It was that Ed, or who did that? Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. So, here's my thinking on what happened on Saturday. Indiana had that game. They had that ball game in their grasp. You have a silly penalty that takes place that cost you, and you had the play stopped. All you had to do is go celebrate with your teammates. You didn't have to do anything to draw an unsportsmanlike conduct call. And a fifth-year guy does that. And I love this kid. I think he's a great young man. But those kinds of mistakes absolutely kill you. And that certainly was, no question, it was a big part of it. The fumble then on the pass reception by Kobe, another huge mistake that made this ball game impossible to win. Those mistakes, they just can't happen. And they did. And so Indiana loses again. But those two, and there were other things as well. I mean, how about the two interceptions that lead to 10 points?
Well, they gave up 14 points, Don, within a combined 3 minutes and 23 seconds of the first and second half. That was such a hole and they still dug out of it. But man, they put themselves in that hole
Well, and it's not. We sit here and bellyache about the offense not being able to block anybody, and of course the run game continues to be a real struggle. But at least the passing game in this contest was significant. Connor Bazelak had a chance to work this ball game and was able to accomplish some things. And granted, he wasn't perfect. He obviously threw the picks, but at the same time, the offensive line made progress. I mean, I'm thrilled that Rod Carey has taken over that line. I think he did an incredible job in his first week, whether it was part of the scheming that he talked to Walt Bell about, the different ways to utilize Connor Bazelak with a rollout. Obviously, the first rollout pass wasn't a good one, but nevertheless, you're doing something for the first time or for in a ball game that you haven't done before. And some of the other things that they did, the Donovan McCulley pass was tremendous. Josh Henderson has emerged, in my opinion, as the best running back right now, as far as the guy that's going to take it up inside or be able to get outside, make receptions, those kinds of things. He looks like the most versatile in that area. And Jalen Lucas has got to be used more. It's just that simple. They got to get him out in space with the football in his hands. If that means he plays a slot receiver, then so be it. But they've got to get. But I still think that the offense made progress this week, even though they still can't block for the running game.
Well, they scored.
Dustin, one question before Josh Henderson. Man, I just love when he gets his hands on the balls. Good things happen. Just doesn't seem like that happens enough. Dustin pointed out earlier he had 8 touches and 80 yards and with those touches, and he just does great things. 5 carries, 20 yards, average 4 yards a carry, catches the ball. He does such a great job. I don't know why they don't use him more.
Well, that you'd have to ask somebody else that question.
We'll do that later, I guess.
Because I don't understand it either, because I think he's shown himself to be the most versatile and the best at all those things that I just talked about. I think he's emerged. And when somebody emerges, that's the guy you go to. I agree with that. So we'll see. I mean, he's getting more work now than he did before, and he deserves it. There's no question about it. At the same time, I think Shivers is a kid that can make things happen too. He just doesn't get the opportunity as much because it doesn't look like to me they block very well for him at all. I mean, it's like every time he runs into a hole, the hole is closed. There's no hole there. So that's a problem. The run game blocking still is a big problem, no question. But they used a true freshman this week in the offensive line at some point. I can't remember him being in there, but I looked at the participation sheet, and there was a true freshman offensive lineman. Was it Bray something? Where did I put that sheet? I put it in here someplace. Hold on a second. Let me see here. Where is he? Do I have the right sheet? No.
Janice, I do agree with your comment, Janice. It says IU football needs to change from LEO to LDF. Love Don Fischer. Well, that flows, man. You may have to copyright that. A little LDF. Put an LDF sticker on helmets, on jerseys. We'll see LDF on jerseys this season.
Okay, let's get past me. Can we get past me?
It's a hell of a lot more fun to talk about. I'll tell you that.
Well, that may be true, and you make me get a red face all the time.
Well, you got a red hat on, so we can't tell.
I'm glad of that.
It seems we've talked about the offensive line quite a bit, but the thing, for me watching this game that's really disappointing, Don, is the fact that I think Indiana's run defense has maybe not been great this season, but it's been solid. It's been better than their pass defense. Maryland won this game scoring 2 touchdowns without completing a pass and able to solidify it. I mean, Talia Tungabailoa goes down and they have to bring in a backup quarterback. You think that's advantageous in Indiana's favor, and they couldn't get a stop. As you mentioned, you had the 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. You had a fumble on the offensive side, but the run defense, which I thought played pretty well last week against Michigan, just completely shut down on those last 2 possessions for Maryland. And that's, to me, very disappointing because whatever the opposite of complementary football is, that's what Indiana's playing right now on a week-to-week basis.
Well, and that's the oddity of this thing. The defense has been the strength of this team throughout the season, but we have seen glimpses of negativity. The guys that are running free out there in the defensive backfield, the inability to stop the run game sometimes when the game is on the line. Certainly in this Maryland game, that proved to be the case. I thought when Tagovailoa went out of this ball game, the game was right there for the taking, and it was. But Indiana defense didn't step up like they are capable of doing. It seems to me. It's so frustrating. You have one part of your team that looks better, and then another part of your team that looks like they're not the same team as we've seen previously. Yeah. So you're just sitting there going, it's like the dam that has like a spot here. You plug that hole, and the next thing it starts leaking over here. It's like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, every time you turn around, and honest to God, this has happened for 50 years now for me, because it's so frustrating to see this happen again. And it's Indiana football. It's Murphy's Law. If it's been that way for forever. I mean, like I said, I think Tom Allen's a good football coach. I think there are good coaches on this staff. I think there are really good players on this team, and we just can't put it all together. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah, and they've still got a tough schedule to play. You've got a Ohio State team on the schedule. You've still got a Penn State team on the schedule. Still have Purdue on the schedule. So it's not going to get easier. These last 2 weeks, they could have, I hate to say this because it sounds like a homer, and they could have beaten Michigan and Maryland in back-to-back weekends and really just sewed their season up. But after you lose those kind of games, it's really like getting punched in the gut a couple of times. It gets harder and harder to come back from that.
Well, the Nebraska game is the game that got away from them that shouldn't have.
That's right. 3 in a row.
The Michigan game, as the Michigan game goes, I still would have said if Indiana's to beat Michigan, they had to play the perfect game. Right. They didn't. Obviously, they got beat, and they played a great first half and were competitive, but they just couldn't hold up. And I know Tom keeps saying it was 3 quarters, but you could see that the handwriting was on the wall in the third period because Michigan was starting to exert their power, their strength. And that team was not going to be denied, I don't think, in that ball game. The Nebraska game is the game that got away from Indiana and probably destroyed a little bit of their confidence this season. That said, that's the game that to me was the turning point of this season to this point. Can they turn it around? Of course, there's every opportunity to do that with Rutgers next week, a bye week to give the offensive line coach Rod Carey an opportunity to continue growing this offensive line and getting them better. But this is not going to be an easy game either. I mean, Rutgers has 2 weeks to prepare. This is the third time this year that a team has had 2 weeks to prepare for Indiana. So Rutgers with a bye week last week. They fired their offensive coordinator last week. So they're going to be doing different things that we haven't seen before, which is going to cause problems, as we know. They're going to try and take advantage of Indiana, what they see as Indiana weakness, and it's going to be different in that vein. But their run game is strong, and their defense is really good. I mean, their defense is tough, and they're physical. And that's Greg Schiano. He wants this defense to be a physical, tough, hard-nosed defense. And it's going to be a challenge for this Indiana football team. And look what Rutgers did to Indiana last year. They just kicked Indiana's butt. 45-3, I think it was, something like that. At any rate, this is going to be a challenge. And if Indiana can't win this ball game, I just can't conceive that they can beat any of these other teams enough to come up with a bowl possibility at the end of the season. So goals are important. If the goal is still out there to be had, you've got motivation there for your players. If the goal's no longer there, you're dead in the water.